Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of From the Other Sideline. I'm your host, Jamie Plunkett, here this week with Melissa Treewasser out of town, part of the Frogs Insider Network. Very excited about our guest today. We are previewing TCU's final regular season game against the Cincinnati Bearcats at 2:30 on Fox over at Amon G. Carter Stadium. We've got Bearcat Journal's Keegan Nickoson here with us today to preview the Bearcats. Keegan, first and foremost, thanks for hopping on during a holiday week. I know
Mhm.
that things are probably pretty busy, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got a radio hit at like 3:45, and then I'm leaving straight from here to go to Fifth Third Arena for a basketball game. So we all know the struggle of crossover season. So I'm in the depths of it right now.
Truly, same. Yeah, TCU plays Florida tomorrow afternoon, Thursday afternoon. So
That's great.
cool. Thanks, guys, for that. Appreciate it. But yeah, so this has been an interesting season, I think, for both the Horned Frogs and the Bearcats. Some expectations maybe hit in a couple areas, unmet in others. But before we jump into kind of the game details and stuff, Keegan, just give me a little insight into Cincinnati's season so far. Started off really hot there at 7-1, and then have dropped the last three games in a row.
Yeah, it was really interesting because they start the season with the loss to Nebraska, basically a road game that was considered a home game at Arrowhead Stadium, and then they have two cupcake games in a bye week, and really nobody knows what they're going to get. Like they're 2-1, they beat Bowling Green and Northwestern State. Northwestern State's one of the worst college football teams in like the entire world, and then you go into this Kansas game on the road and you're thinking, okay, they're probably going to lose. Kansas is pretty good and it's a road game, and they haven't really shown that they can win these kinds of games. And then they win in a shootout, and you're thinking, oh crap, this team might be pretty good. Then they beat Iowa State at home, an undefeated Iowa State. And it's like, okay, this team's rolling. And then they keep on piling up wins, and then you go get walloped by Utah on the road, and that's kind of like, okay, Utah is a pretty good team, tough road environment. You're playing at 10:15 Eastern. That's never great. And but you're still in complete control of being able to play in a Big 12 championship game. And then you lose two games that you probably should have won given how they went. And it was really self-inflicted mistakes against Arizona and BYU. And now you're out of it trying to get to 8-4 and just get a better bowl. So it was like very quickly up trajectory, and then now it's been very quickly down trajectory, and a lot of people are going back to, okay, maybe Satterfield isn't the guy. Like maybe we've got to move on from him, and that's in the near future. They're a very, very talented team. They've got a mix of transfers and a mix of returners, but you just aren't seeing the full season's effort, and you aren't seeing that talented and good team week in and week out like you saw through the first 8 weeks of the season.
So is it a maximizing talent situation then? Because I think TCU fans hear you talking about that a little bit and feel like that's something similar to what's going on in Fort Worth right now, where
Yeah.
you look at the kind of composite talent, you look at the veteran nature of the roster, and for some reason, just things haven't fully clicked.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the tougher things is you have like really good top of the talent roster. And then the big thing was kind of supplying depth, and that's what they got out of the portal. I think they had 21 guys out of the portal after the 2024 season. So like you've got Brennan Sorsby, who's going to be an NFL quarterback, has a lot of talent, uses his legs really well. And then you've got guys like Jake Golday, Dante Corleone on the defensive side of the ball who are going to play in the NFL. And then you've got guys like Joe Royer, who set your program receptions, single season receptions record in year one. And his first full year as a go-to tight end, transferring from Ohio State. And then now he's had 5 targets over the last 4 games. And it's just like, what are we doing? And then the continued thing is, okay, they're bracketing them. Like, that's why we can't get him any targets. But like Calvin Johnson got bracketed by 3 people, and they still threw him the ball and just saw what would happen. Like, you have to be, and I know that's not, it's not apples to apples, but you still have to find a way to get the ball in your best player's hands. So there's been a lot of frustration. There's been a lot of like, it seems like they don't really know how to beat man coverage, which seems like it shouldn't be that difficult. Last year's receivers just simply weren't fast enough to beat man coverage. It was easy to kind of blanket them. But now you brought in the fast guys like Cyrus Allen, Jeff Caldwell, and Caleb Goody, and you still can't do it. So I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I think another thing that's really frustrating a lot of people, and something that I pointed out, was Scott Satterfield's continually said, like, this offense is based on rhythm. Like, when we're in a rhythm, we're going. We have to figure out how to get in a rhythm. But he subs like every 2 plays and then halts the game for 20 seconds. And then you really got hurt against BYU because you would sub, and then you'd have to let them sub, and they would bring one guy in and he would slowly jog. Then he'd tap the guy on the shoulder, and then he'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm coming out. And then he would slowly jog. So then you're forced to call timeouts or get delay games, and it really kills your rhythm. So I think that there's some inconsistencies in terms of scheme. I think the players are really good, and I don't foresee how you can kind of get a better team talent-wise and on paper next season. I think this season was kind of the perfect storm of talent across the board.
So first and foremost, TCU is known to slow play those subs as well. So that's definitely something
That's
to,
gonna be
to
great.
look for on Saturday. I actually, a couple weeks ago against BYU, TCU and BYU did it to each other, forced each other to call timeout, I think, on consecutive possessions there in the first half. And then I think they came to some sort of truce there after halftime when the game got out of hand a little bit. But so something to look for there from TCU's defense. But when it comes to the offense and Brendan Swarsby specifically, 24 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions this year, 9 rushing touchdowns to lead the team as well. One of the truest dual threat quarterbacks that we have in the league and probably in the country. But he seems to have taken a really big step forward this year. You mentioned the wide receivers having a little bit more speed, but what has, to you, been the key for Sorsby's big leap this year?
I truly do think it is the receivers. Like it's just having faster receivers that can get open, so he doesn't have to force it into like tiny windows. For him specifically, the biggest thing would be just playing a little bit more conservative, like knowing when to throw the ball away, knowing when to use your legs and get out of the pocket. Last year, you've probably seen the clip of his interception against West Virginia, where he's literally falling down and getting sacked, and just does like a Josh Allen rookie year shovel pass, and it gets easily picked off for a pick 6. And then he like tries to throw the ball away too late and ends up fumbling, and that goes back for a touchdown. And then they end up losing that game by 13. And you handed West Virginia's defense 14 points. So he's playing more conservative. He's making better decisions, but I truly don't think he's playing that much better. Like actually, how he's playing football, it's not that much better than what it was last year. Like he's making the same sorts of throws. He's using his legs in the same way. Now he just has the weapons. And the time he had at Indiana and the 6 games he played, you saw the potential, and that kind of he had a really quick release. He was willing to make gutsy throws and put it in small windows. And then UC's kind of gotten that out of him. And now they just have to figure out how to beat man coverage or do whatever against TCU, so they can kind of finish 8-4 and not have another bad losing streak in the season.
When you look at from the 7-game winning streak to the 3-game losing streak now, has anything changed offensively other than the struggle to beat man? Has there been any kind of dramatic shift in philosophy, or is this just maybe? I mean, you ran into a better than everyone expected Arizona, a BYU team, and I can't remember the third team in that losing streak. But just, you think it maybe just is competition more than anything else?
Yeah, the third team was Utah on the road when they just got destroyed. The receivers have been playing significantly worse in terms of just like drops. Like they've dropped the ball a lot more in big plays, and it's hurt UC's ability to like gain momentum. They're running less screens is a specific thing that I would say, and also like they would use these gadget plays with Isaiah Johnson, who I think is a true sophomore wide receiver, and he's their best wide receiver with the ball in his hands and just how he's able to make people miss. And they didn't run that play for I think the Utah and Arizona games. They didn't run anything like that. So I don't know if it's Satterfield has said like they're one of the most efficient offenses in the country. They just don't run enough plays. And like my boss, Chad Brendel, is just constantly saying like they have to be able to get into the offense to form a rhythm and run those kind of screenplays and pop passes. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Like if you have a play that you think could work, call it and see what happens. But I don't think any philosophy has really changed. They're not running the ball near as well. And that's kind of what the offense has always been based on, is that kind of zone offense. And Evan Pryor was hurt for 2 games, so he didn't play. Tawi Walker isn't running as well. So that's definitely had an impact. But in terms of like a philosophy change, they kind of just saw man and saw pressure for the first time, and they actually played teams that could cover those receivers. And that's where you see the struggle and trying to stretch the field and kind of get those multiple completions in a row.
That's interesting. With TCU's defense this year, the weaknesses have been both in the pass rush and in the secondary. So I wonder
Yeah.
if there's maybe an opportunity for Cincinnati to kind of get back into a rhythm there. With TCU, defensively at the second corner spot has been
Yeah.
a real kind of revolving door for the Frogs this year, outside of Vernon Glover, who's by far been their best corner. And you've seen teams really be able to attack TCU over the top because guys have time in the pocket to throw. And so I wonder if you mentioned the conservative nature of Brendan Sworsby. I wonder if this maybe is an opportunity for him to air it out a little bit and let some of those guys get deeper downfield. Because if you look in some of these losses, like to BYU, or even in a win over Baylor where they scored 21 points in the last 3 minutes of the game, it's just been kind of deep passes over the middle of the field, those deep post routes, those kinds of things that have really gotten guys open. So it will be interesting to see how Cincinnati's offense starts to generate some points and some momentum against the Frogs on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like his ability in the pocket is one of his best attributes because he's only been sacked 4 times. And a part of that is because the offensive line has been so good. But a part of that is his ability to like his internal clock and how he can navigate it and how he knows like when to throw the ball away so he doesn't get sacked. But yeah, when he's in the pocket and has a clean pocket, he's one of the best passers, in my opinion, in the country. So I think that he'll have a good chance to have some success, and he'll probably be really relieved that he's not playing one of the top 3 defenses in the conference for the 4th game in a row. So
that'd be a nice little change of pace for him for
yeah.
sure. Moving over to the other side of the football. Cincinnati's defense has been pretty stout for most of the year. You've already mentioned Dante Corleone. You've mentioned Golday at the linebacker spot, leading tackler for Cincinnati this season. What has been the key to slowing down some of the more potent offenses across the league? I mean, holding BYU to 26, even in a loss, is really nice. Some other really good defensive performances against some pretty good offenses this year.
Yeah, the fan base doesn't think it's very nice because they're wanting to like fire the defensive coordinator and tear down the scheme, and I don't really understand it. Like my big thing in going against that thinking is like they've been in a position to win 10 of their 11 games that they've played, like Utah being the exception, and the Big 12. It's not really going to be based off of a really stout defense. Like it's going to be, can our offense score 38 points a game? And in large part, like for much of the season, UC was doing that, but now the offense has slowed down. The defense is just, it's much more pressure. They're on the field so much more and they're letting up more points. But I think it's an interesting defense. They got run over against BYU, but like LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier are going to run over kind of anyone in the conference besides Texas Tech, because Texas Tech is just it's a wagon. So yeah, it's Tyson Vite's a great coach. I was kind of skeptical of the 3-3-5, but like what makes it so different is their ability in the red zone. And like if you get the ball at the 25, you're probably going to get to the 30, but you're going to get to the opponent's 30 to UC's 30, but that's where the defense is really bowed up, and it's forced a lot of field goal attempts, or it's gotten turnovers, or you maybe get in 4-down territory and get a turnover on downs. So it's really been a bend don't break, but it's been a very successful bend don't break in that you aren't giving up a ton of touchdowns. You're not giving up like 30 points a game. And then you give the ball to the offense with a chance to take the lead.
It's interesting, TCU fans are, I think, similar to Cincinnati fans in a lot of ways. What it sounds like, because for the entirety of Sonny Dykes' tenure, pretty much they've been really pissed at the defensive coordinator,
Yeah.
except for this season where Andy Avalos in year 2 has kind of turned things around and gotten the defense a little bit whipped into shape, at least against the run, which was a
Mhm.
huge disaster for TCU the last couple of years. But when it comes to Cincy on defense, the 3-3-5 is something that's kind of taking the Big 12 by storm right now. TCU runs kind of a hybrid version of it. Obviously,
Mhm.
Iowa State has run it for a century, it
Yeah.
feels like. A couple of other schools mix it in here and there as well. It's interesting because that defense really has to have that anchor point in the middle of the defensive line.
Yeah.
Dante Corleone seems to be that guy for Cincy, although he's been a little banged up. What can TCU fans expect from him on kind of the interior of that defensive line on Saturday?
Yeah, it's been kind of a disappointing season from him, and I think he would tell you that he didn't kind of have the last season in Cincinnati that he wanted. Struggled through blood clots last season and was cleared to play, but didn't get a full off season, so he wasn't really up in shape until like the eighth or ninth game of the season. And then he comes in and he's fully ready to go. He's fully ready to compete, and then injures his ankle against Bowling Green and misses Northwestern State, gets a bye, and then comes back, and he just wasn't really ever 100%. He'll still take the attention like from the offensive line, and they're still going to have to check on him. You saw a couple game record plays from him against BYU where he's just like getting into the backfield. But I don't know if I can really expect him to be like, hey, he's going to be in the backfield all game and he's going to have a couple sacks, because you just haven't really seen that. I think the most dangerous player on UC's defense would be Golday, just because of his size and speed combination, converted defensive end from Central Arkansas. And he's also really, really good in pass rush. And if there's a guy on the team that can kind of flip that switch and be like, we need to make a play, so I need to make a play, it's going to be him. He did it against Nebraska. He's done it multiple times in his career. Did it against Texas Tech last year, against UCF last year. So if there's anyone that you should really look out for on defense, it's number 11.
That's perfect to hear. TCU has done a really good job, I think, of attacking linebackers this season with some of those slot guys, especially Joseph Manjack when he's healthy, Ed Small when he was healthy, have had a good and their tight ends as well. DJ Rogers and Chase Curtis have done a good job of attacking that linebacker spot. So maybe there's an opportunity there to get him into coverage more. I don't know if he ever falls back into coverage a ton, but getting him into coverage and keeping him off of that TCU offensive line that, man, has really seen some shuffling and some attrition and some inconsistencies this year. They've started 3 different guys at left tackle,
Oh gosh,
three different guys now at right tackle, and then 3 different guys at each of the guard positions as well, and 2 guys at center. I mean, it's been injuries, it's been inconsistent play, it's been everything, and so it's another situation, I think, for Cincinnati where even if Corleone hasn't had the kind of year he's had, there might be some opportunity on Saturday to send people kind of that last reminder of, hey, when I'm a full go, I can still do this thing, and it'll be up to TCU's interior offensive line to really keep him from doing that. When TCU is really in a rhythm, though, on offense, it's when Josh Hoover is finding Eric McAllister consistently on the outside.
yeah.
And I know I wrote this a little bit answering one of your questions earlier today. That seems to happen regardless of coverage, whether you're bracketing, whether you're press man and you got a safety over the top, you're giving him a little bit of breathing room off the line. However you're trying to cover Eric McAllister, Josh Hoover's going to try and get him the football. When it comes to Cincinnati's secondary, how equipped do you think they are to slow down TCU's passing attack, and specifically that Hoover to McAllister connection?
I think they're pretty well equipped. They're definitely well equipped in the ability to shut down the like really explosive plays, like the 45 to 50-yard completions. That's been something that they've been very good at preventing. What has given Cincinnati fans fits, and what's given me fits, if I'm being completely honest, is when you'll have like a 3rd and 4 or a 3rd and 5, and then the corner is playing like 10 yards off. And it's just like, okay, quick turnaround, boom, first down, let's keep going. So that's something that Satterfield has said needs to be fixed, but it's kind of just in the nature of the 3-3-5 where they're going to play soft and say, okay, you can have this first down because we're not going to let you beat us over top. And then when we get into like the red zone or the red area, we're going to tighten up a little bit and we're going to like play our style of defense. Matthew McDoom was the cornerback one coming into the season. He's a Coastal Carolina transfer, had a lot of interest from other schools. He's had a pretty disappointing year, to the point where when they played against Arizona, he was getting like picked on, like got targeted 8 times, gave up 84 yards. Logan Wilson is like a 6th or 7th year guy. He's played at Kansas State, North Texas, and I was in year 2 at Cincinnati. And I think he's probably taken that label of cornerback one. He's a leader on the defense. He's a captain, and he's had a really, really good season. Was a safety. He's actually a corner, and then went to safety at North Texas, and then switched back to corner at Cincinnati. So he's had a really good year. And I just the pass interferences I've heard you see every now and then because they're just not getting their head around. Daniel James would be that depth corner that has had some struggles. Ormani Arnold has had a pretty decent season. He's another depth corner. But the thing about UC's defensive backfield is going to be the safeties. Like, how does Christian Harrison play? How does Trayvon Gala-Collard play? How does Antoine Peak or Jaquan Sanks play? Are you making tackles? Are you whiffing on open field tackles? Because that's another thing that really hurt them during this losing streak. So I would expect them to take care of the deep ball and not let McAllister get behind them. But you're going to see the completion percentage of Josh Huber be pretty high. What's going to be the biggest thing is what he does in the red zone. If you're scoring touchdowns early in the red zone, TCU is going to be in a good spot because that's going to put pressure on Cincinnati's offense. And when they are playing with pressure on them, they don't play well. The big thing the offense has done is get out to like 3 and 4 score leads and then take the foot off the pedal in the second half. And then the other team will be a turnover away from making it really interesting, but they just haven't turned the ball over that much. So look for the touchdowns early. And if they can get those, it's going to change the game a lot.
Well, for TCU's sake, I hope they get those. They haven't really this season. Their game against Houston this past Saturday was just the second time in their last 7 games that they've scored in the first quarter. So the offense has really struggled to get off to good starts, and they've thrown everything at the wall, right? It's really interesting to see from this offense that had such a successful year in 2024 to be so slow starting pretty much the entire season this year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of which one of those teams shows up, especially in the first quarter on Saturday. You know, Keegan, you mentioned at the beginning some dissatisfaction with Scott Satterfield from the fan base.
Yeah.
3-9 in year 1, 5-7 last season, and now, you know, a winning record, a bowl berth, and in the mix for Arlington up until last week. Do you see this program as one that's overall kind of generally trending in the right direction? Or is the fan base kind of dissatisfaction, something that's valid, really?
So that's a really interesting question. Satterfield took over at maybe the most difficult spot that a coach could take over a program, because this is twofold. You're taking over a program that 2 years prior had won 25 of its 26 games and made a college football playoff. You're taking over for a coach who was not fired but left to go coach a Big Ten school. You're taking over for a coach that had a first-round pick, a top 5 pick in corner at Sauce Gardner, an NFL pick in Desmond Ridder, Kobe Bryant, Josiah DeGuara, Josh Wiley, all these really, really talented players. And then even in the next year after the playoff year, I think they still went 10-2 and only lost to like Tulane and Arkansas. It might have been 9-3. I was at Indiana, so I wasn't really tracking it that closely. So like it's like, okay, this is getting close to a football school because it's been a basketball school for so long. Bob Huggins, 2 national championships, Oscar Robertson. And then Scott Satterfield takes over, and it's like, okay, like they still kept a lot of the roster together. This should be pretty good. And then it's just horrible, like so bad. And like who did they beat? They beat Eastern Kentucky, and then they beat Pitt on the road. And you're thinking, crap, like it's going to be pretty good. This is a good coach, good team. And then you play Miami of Ohio at home in a night game and lose to Miami of Ohio for the first time in like 14 years. That's when the fire Satterfield stuff started. Like if he had won that game and then just struggled in the Big 12, it's like, okay, it's an adjustment. But you lose to Miami of Ohio, and then you really struggle in the Big 12. I think the only Big 12 win they got that year was Houston on the road. And then you come back in year 2 and you're only going 5-7. And then it's like, okay, what's really going to be fixed? And then you take another step forward, but you're on the verge of it being a really underwhelming season. So the fan base's critiques, I don't think that they put the context into a lot of it, especially when you see like Luke Fickell's recruiting classes from 2021 to 2023 were just not good. Like there were very, very, very few players that this regime at UC were interested in keeping on the roster just because they did not have Power 4 talent. I think Luke Fickell, from what you're seeing at Wisconsin right now, caught lightning in a bottle with those few years at UC and what he was able to do. With Sauce Gardner was a 3-star, Desmond Ridder was a 2-star. The quarterback he didn't even recruit. It was actually Zach Taylor, funnily enough, under Tommy Tuberville, who recruited Desmond Ridder. So I think Fickell caught lightning in a bottle, and then the fans are expecting Satterfield to do the same. But where I don't give Satterfield kind of the benefit of the doubt or give him an excuse is a lot of the stuff that's hurting UC has just been like self-inflicted wounds, and it's been play calling in big spots. And why are you making these subs in this spot? So he definitely has a lot of responsibility on it, but he's also not in a good spot taking over for a guy who was having so much success.
How's as far as NIL and rev share? I mean, at the end of the day, right? I asked Sonny after the Houston game if in-state interconference wins like the one they had Saturday even matter when it comes to recruiting anymore. Because Houston is a recruiting ground for TCU, a pretty significant one. And he said, no, it's all about money right now. So how much of that talent acquisition do you attribute to kind of the strength or the kind of the current state of rev share and NIL at Cincy?
Yeah, I can very confidently say that like UC's 3 best players, Joe Royer, Brennan Sorsby, and Dante Corleone, were offered maybe double what they're making at Cincinnati now after last season from like huge programs.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to stay because they loved the coaching staff and they thought that they were building something really important. So like they've been able to keep some of their guys at a pretty discounted price tag in terms of the comparison to the market. But the basketball team is getting more support in terms of the usual split. Like I guess a lot of people would say the usual split is 75-25. The basketball team is getting a more favorable split compared to that. And they're in a really tough spot in that they have to basically scout like every player in college football and decide which players can actually play for Cincinnati just in case they enter the portal. So like their director of player personnel, Jack Griffith, is one of the best guys at his job in the entire country. He scouted from the end of the season in 2023 to the closing of the portal in 2024. I think the spring portal in 2024. Or no, it was 2024 to 2025, that window. He scouted 22,178 players just to see if they were good enough to play for UC, and they signed 21. So it's been so much time on task and their ability to kind of decide so specifically and kind of with their small margin of error, identify those players that they've been able to get some of that talent. But it's like Sonny Dyke said, it's so much about money. Like they've lost out on some really good players that were actually committed to them because someone sweeps in late and says, well, like double your money easily. Mm-hmm. And then they go to that school. So it's a huge thing. I talked to Scott Satterfield at Big 12 Media Days and in a roundabout way asked him like, hey, are you happy with how much money that the university is giving you in rev share? And he basically said, no, not really. Like in comparison to the big guys in the sport, in comparison to the top of the Big 12, like there's always room to grow and there's room that we need some more. And it's especially frustrating because the basketball program hasn't been to an NCAA tournament in like 7 years, ever since Mick Cronin left. So there's a lot of apathy forming within the fan base of Cincinnati, and it's kind of sucks to cover it sometimes.
That's it's almost disconcerting how similar TCU and Cincy's fan bases are right now. TCU is so frustrated with kind of the Dykes administration at this point, because TCU is as invested as you can possibly be, I think, in football, and men's basketball has taken a little bit of a hit in that regard. Now, women's hoops, which costs far less than men's basketball, has been well invested in. Baseball has been well invested in, which I think Cincinnati is still doing pretty well under Jordan Bishel as well. And you just still aren't seeing quite the return that you would like to see. I mean, Houston for Sonny Dykes was his first ranked win since the Fiesta Bowl over Michigan. Right. And so he's 18-11 against unranked opponents since the start of 2023.
Yeah.
And typically, if you're looking at a TCU team that for years and years and years in the Big 12, when Texas and OU were still a part of the conference, was the third best recruiting team in the league. Consistently for like 8 years in a row, they were the third by talent composite, best recruiting class. When you have what you believe to be a superior talented roster, and you are going up against teams with, maybe a little bit less in the bank than TCU does as far as NIL and rev share goes, I think it's completely reasonable for TCU's fan base to be as frustrated as they are at this point, because Sonny Dykes said back in July, hey, if we're not in Arlington, we've failed.
Yeah.
Here we are on November 26th recording this, and they are 7-4 and very much not going to Arlington. 4-4 in Big 12 play. I mean, before the Houston game, they were tied for 10th in the league.
Yeah.
And the class that they're about to sign in a week is, I think, currently ranked 7th in the Big 12. And so there's a lot of questions happening in Fort Worth right now about what is even happening with TCU football. How is it fallen like this? And he even had he said last week, Sonny did, I think 12-0 raised everybody's expectations for TCU football.
A little bit.
I mean, sure, out from an outside perspective, yeah, but that was TCU's 13th 10-win or more seasons in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this has been a program that has won at a high level and been competitive consistently over the last, quarter century. And I think it's interesting to see, especially with Cincy coming off of the success they had under Fickell, to see kind of similar trajectories now for both these programs is really interesting, especially in the midst of all of the coaching turnover that we're about to see in the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah. I'm curious. So obviously Texas is like huge money. How are they supported in comparison to SMU, Texas, and Texas Tech? And those three, because I'm assuming Baylor would be pretty close to what you guys are doing.
Baylor's not very close, but Texas A&M would be the fourth one.
Yeah.
And so you've got A&M and Texas, so you've got two kind of big dogs that eat. Texas Tech has said, you know what, we don't care how much it costs. We're going to do what we can to build the best roster in the league, and I think all the evidence points towards they've done that.
Yeah.
TCU has that money. They have that kind of donor base. They can sit there and write checks all day if they'd like. I think there's been a disinterest from football leadership specifically, and over what they would consider overspending either in the portal or for high school guys who haven't done anything at the collegiate level. And when you're in that position to say, well, we don't want to overspend on guys in the portal, and we don't want to overspend on guys who, they don't develop. Well, then, you've really kind of trimmed down the pool that you're fishing in. And for TCU, especially along the offensive line, that has not been a winning strategy over the last couple of years. So the money is there. They're fully invested in football. I think they probably have a top 4 football budget in the Big 12. Maybe even top 2 or 3. Really, truly, especially when you consider the fact that Sonny Dykes has done a lot, something very similar to what Billy Napier did at Florida, just in the amount of staffers that he has. Yeah. Just all of the guys in the purple polos running around everywhere doing evaluations and all the kinds of stuff. I mean, it's a massive staff. So I think TCU's investment is there, but we're just not not quite seeing the results that people would like on the field.
Yeah, gotcha. That's
So.
yeah. It's so weird how similar both programs are, like football and basketball.
Yes.
So,
Oh my
it's
God. Don't
interesting.
men's basketball is I love Jamie Dixon to death. I do, and he really has kind of gotten the short end of the stick from the rev share side of things, and so
Yeah,
the last thing that they could have afforded this year was losing their center to an ACL, and that happened in the first, I
yeah,
think, 12 minutes of the season. So just unbelievable bad luck for Jamie Dixon and the men's basketball team. But
yeah.
Keegan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your week. I know you got a busy afternoon, and the Thanksgiving holiday is tomorrow. So happy Thanksgiving to you, man. Best of luck, and we'll catch up soon. But thanks for
Yep.
coming on.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it.